Every financial advisor in America will tell you the same thing, usually with a straight face and a polished spreadsheet. They'll tell you that you need at least $2 million to retire comfortably. Some will say $3 million. The most conservative will quietly slide the number to $5 million, just to be safe. I'm Daniel Ruth. I'm 98 years old. I've spent more than 7 decades watching people chase those numbers. And I'm going to tell you something that will make most of the retirement industry very uncomfortable. They're not just wrong. They're wrong in a way that keeps millions of people working decades longer than necessary. Because they're optimizing for the wrong question. They're calculating how much money you need to maintain your current lifestyle in your current city with your current spending habits, surrounded by the same cost structure that exists only because you're employed. That is not the right question. The only question that matters is this: how much money do you need to never be forced to work for someone else again? Not how much to keep everything exactly the same. Not how much to preserve your commuting stress, your expensive coping mechanisms, your convenience spending, and your time scarcity. How much do you need so that waking up every morning becomes a choice, not an obligation? How much do you need so that work becomes optional instead of mandatory? When you ask that question instead, the answer isn't $2 million. It's $300,000. Not $3 million. Not $2 million. $300,000. Now, I know exactly what's happening in your mind right now. You're dismissing this as naive, or reckless, or disconnected from reality. That's fine. That reaction is trained into you by an industry that profits from fear and delay. So let me slow this down and show you the arithmetic. Not opinions, not motivation, not optimism. Arithmetic that's been true for a century and will still be true when you're gone. First, we need to talk about what retirement actually is. The retirement industry defines retirement as maintaining your pre-retirement spending forever. If you spend $70,000 per year while working, they assume you must spend $70,000 per year forever after you stop working. This assumption collapses the moment you examine it. Most of your current spending is not lifestyle spending. It's compensation spending. Money spent to survive the structure of employment. Expensive food because you don't have time to cook. Work clothes you wouldn't wear otherwise. A nicer car because your commute drains your soul. Short, expensive vacations because you're exhausted and only get 2 weeks. Entertainment purchases because you're stressed and need relief. Remove the job, and an enormous portion of that spending evaporates. You suddenly have time. Time to cook. Time to walk. Time to rest. Time to live slowly. You no longer need to buy relief from a life you don't control. In every serious study I've seen, and I've seen many, people who leave employment see their actual cost of a good life drop by 30 to 50%. That's assumption 1 destroyed. Assumption 2 is even more damaging, that you must live in the same place forever. Why? If your job is the only reason you live in an expensive city, why stay when the job ends? The difference in cost of living between American cities and much of the world is staggering. San Francisco to Lisbon, roughly 70% lower cost. New York to Chiang Mai, over 80% lower. Seattle to Medellin, about 75% lower. And here's the part nobody tells you. The quality of life often improves. Better weather, more walkable cities, stronger food culture, less stress, more social connection, better work-life balance baked into the culture. The idea that a good life must be expensive is a uniquely American belief. And it's wrong. Assumption 3 is the most subtle, that you need to replace your income. You don't. You need to cover your expenses. Those are not the same number. Income matters only while you're working. Once you stop, only spending matters. If your life costs $18,000 per year, you don't need to replace a $90,000 salary. You need $18,000. This is where the math becomes unavoidable. $300,000 invested conservatively, producing a 4% annual yield, generates $12,000 per year. That's $1,000 per month. In the United States, that's desperation. In large parts of the world, it's comfort. In Portugal, $1,000 per month supports a modest but dignified middle-class life. In Thailand, it supports an upper-middle-class lifestyle. In Colombia, Vietnam, Albania, Mexico, Greece, Spain. It's enough to live well, not survive. A safe apartment, good food, affordable health care, public transportation, community, time, not luxury, not excess, freedom. The financial services industry doesn't explain this because if you understood it, you'd stop working 20 years earlier. And they'd lose decades of fees. So instead, they sell fear. They show you inflation charts that assume constant high spending. Healthcare projections based on American prices. Longevity models that assume zero flexibility and zero income forever. All designed to keep you working, saving, and paying. Now let me ground this in reality. Lisbon, Portugal. A one-bedroom apartment in a safe neighborhood, $700 to $900. Utilities and internet, $100. Food, $350. Healthcare, $40. Transportation, $50. Miscellaneous, $100. That's roughly $1,300 per month in one of Europe's most livable cities. Chiang Mai, Thailand. Modern apartment with amenities, $350. Utilities, $50. Food, $300. Healthcare, $100. Transportation, $50. Entertainment, $100. That's under $1,000 per month. Comfortably. Medellin, Colombia. Total monthly cost, you want $100 to $1,300. Now compare that to a basic American city. Rent, $1,800. Health insurance, $500. Transportation, $400. Food, $500. Utilities and phone, $200. That's $3,400 per month. And you're not living better. To support $3,400 per month at a 4% withdrawal rate, you need over $1 million. To support $1,200 per month, you need $300,000. Same freedom, different math. Now, people always raise the same objections. Healthcare? Outside the US, routine healthcare is dramatically cheaper and often better. A $40,000 surgery in America costs $8,000 in Spain and $4,000 in Thailand, with the same outcomes. Inflation? Your money remains invested. Stocks grow with inflation, and living costs in low-cost countries give you enormous flexibility. Family and friends? A real cost, but one most people never examine honestly. Many overestimate how tied they are. Video calls and annual visits maintain relationships. New communities form faster than you expect. What if something goes wrong? You still own the capital? You can always return to work. This isn't a prison sentence. It's optionality. And here's the part nobody expects. Almost no one living this way earns zero income. When you're not exhausted by employment, you naturally build small income streams. Teaching online, freelancing, consulting, writing, creating. An extra $3,000 to $6,000 per year changes everything. Now, $300,000 isn't just enough. It's comfortable, so let me be precise. I am not saying this is for everyone. I am saying it's for a specific type of person. Flexible about location, comfortable with simplicity, capable of self-direction, willing to challenge assumptions. For that person, the idea that you need $2 million is not conservative. It's absurd. If you're willing to test this, don't argue with me. Run the experiment. Spend 1 month living like a resident in a low-cost country, not a tourist. Track your spending. Feel your stress levels. Notice your time. That month could shorten your working life by 20 years. I've lived long enough to tell you this with certainty. Most people don't fail because they lack intelligence or opportunity. They fail because they never question the assumptions they inherit. Freedom isn't expensive, it's just unconventional. And for those willing to see clearly, it's closer than they've been told. There's something nobody warns you about once you finally escape. Not the money part, not the logistics, not the spreadsheets, the silence. When work disappears, the noise goes with it. And what remains is you, your thoughts, your habits, your identity. Most people think freedom feels like celebration. It doesn't. At first, it feels like disorientation. For decades, your days were decided for you. Alarms, deadlines, meetings, metrics, someone else telling you what mattered and when it mattered. Then suddenly, nothing is required. No boss, no schedule, no performance review, just time. And time is a mirror? This is where many people fail after they've already won. They reach financial independence and quietly rebuild a cage. Not with money, but with distraction. They fill their days with noise because silence forces questions they've been avoiding their entire lives. Who am I without productivity? What am I worth if I'm not useful to someone else? What do I do when no one is watching? I've seen people return to work not because they needed money, but because they needed permission to exist. That's the real danger. If your identity is built entirely on output, freedom will feel terrifying. Which is why I tell people this part matters more than the numbers. Before you exit work, you must exit the belief that your value comes from exhaustion. You were trained to equate suffering with worth. Long hours meant dedication. Stress meant importance. Burnout meant you were doing something right. That conditioning doesn't disappear just because your bank balance changes. You have to unlearn it deliberately. Here's what actually happens when people succeed long term. They stop asking, "How do I stay busy?" and start asking, "What deserves my attention?" Attention becomes the scarce resource, not money. They design days instead of filling them. Mornings become slow. Meals become intentional. Movement becomes natural instead of forced. Sleep becomes regular instead of stolen. Not because they're optimizing life, but because they're no longer fighting it. This is where something strange happens. Your nervous system resets. You realize how tense you were for decades without noticing. How shallow your breathing was. How constant the background anxiety felt. And once that fades, you understand something most people never experience. Calm is addictive. Not excitement, not stimulation. Calm. And calm changes how you make decisions. You stop chasing novelty. You stop buying identity. You stop upgrading just to feel movement. You become selective. That selectivity is what protects wealth. Now let me tell you, the mistake that destroys more fortunes than market crashes ever did. It's not greed. It's identity inflation. people escape work, gain time, gain money, and then slowly rebuild the very lifestyle that once trapped them. Bigger house, more commitments, higher fixed costs, social obligations they can't easily exit. They don't notice it happening because each step feels reasonable. Until one day, they're free in theory and trapped again in practice. Different cage, same bars. Real freedom is not having money. It's having low enough needs that money can't control you. The people who keep their freedom do something counterintuitive. They cap their lifestyle, not because they can't afford more, but because they understand the cost of complexity. Every upgrade adds friction. Every possession adds maintenance. Every obligation adds mental weight. Minimalism isn't about aesthetics. It's about defensive living. Defending your time, defending your attention, defending your nervous system. I lived long enough to see this pattern repeat endlessly. The happiest people I know didn't maximize pleasure. They minimized regret. They chose days they could repeat forever. Now let me talk about purpose. Because people always ask, "What do you do all day?" The question reveals the problem. They assume purpose must be scheduled. Purpose isn't something you find. It's something that emerges once pressure disappears. When you're no longer desperate, you become curious. When you're curious, you explore. When you explore, you contribute naturally. Teaching, mentoring, creating, building small things that matter to a few people. Not for money, but because meaning wants expression. Ironically, this is often when money flows again. But now it's irrelevant. And because it's irrelevant, it doesn't distort your decisions. That's the final level most never reach, where money exists but doesn't speak loudly, where time is abundant but not wasted, where days feel full, not busy. I'm 98 years old. I don't remember most of the things I bought. I remember conversations, morning light, unhurried walks, work done because it mattered, not because it paid. If I could leave you with one truth, it's this. Freedom is not a finish line. It's a skill. And like all skills, it must be practiced, or it fades. In the final part, I'll tell you the single rule that governs everything we've discussed. The rule that makes freedom sustainable instead of temporary. It's simple, it's uncomfortable, and it works. If you're willing to test this, don't argue with me. Run the experiment. Spend 1 month living like a resident in a low-cost country. Not a tourist. Track your spending. Feel your stress levels. Notice your time. That month could shorten your working life by 20 years. I've lived long enough to tell you this with certainty. Most people don't fail because they lack intelligence or opportunity. They fail because they never question the assumptions they inherit. Freedom isn't expensive. It's just unconventional. And for those willing to see clearly, it's closer than they've been told.